Well, here comes the crackdown on civil liberties after the terrorist attacks in France. Quote, in the wake of the devastating Paris terrorist attacks, British Prime Minister David Cameron said encrypted messaging services pose a national security threat because they can't be easily monitored by intelligence agencies. Quote, the attacks in Paris demonstrated the scale of the threat that we face and the need to have robust powers through our intelligence and security agencies in order to keep our people safe. That was his direct quote. If re-elected in May, Cameron promised to ban encrypted online communication services unless tech companies give British intelligence special access. Those backdoor permissions would be folded into legislation requiring telecommunications companies and broadband providers to collect and store citizens' online communications. Quote, are we going to allow a means of communications which it simply isn't possible to read? My answer to that question is no, we must not. Again, that's a direct quote from him. So unfortunately, this happens after many, many attacks. Whenever a nation feels like it's under threat, you always have the government stepping up and saying, well, you know, we could probably keep you safe in a better way if you just go ahead and give away some of your civil liberties, give away some of your rights, give away some of your privacy, and then we promise that we'll better be able to protect you. But I mean, you want to talk about, to steal a saying from Obama, using a hatchet when you should be using a scalpel. You want to get rid of all encrypted messaging online? Because there are some terrorists in the world? So you're laying it out there. You're just saying flat out, I want the government to be able to read everybody's stuff because 0.00001% of the society are terrorists. That's insane. There's a reason why encrypted services exist, and it's not just to protect terrorists. Encrypted services exist so that people can sext and that people can talk shit about people they don't like at work, and there's 1,000,001 reasons why somebody would use an encrypted service. Who wants the general public reading their private emails and their private messages? That would mean it's not private. That would mean you're messaging everybody when you're trying to message one person and have a one-on-one conversation. I mean, it's a crazy idea to think about, you know, to take, for example, a soldier on duty and they want to talk to their wife and they're not able to see their wife and have sex with their wife, so they end up sexting back and forth and there's pictures exchanged and videos and all this stuff, and it's like the government is openly admitting. They're like, no, we want to be able to see everything. Well, for fuck's sake, we're not against intelligence. So you're allowed to have an intelligence agency, and you're allowed to look for terrorists and look for terrorism threats, but do it the right way. Like in America, for example. Now we spy on everybody also, but we had a way to go about this that made sense. If there's a reason, if there is evidence for you to look at a particular person's private stuff, go to a judge, an independent body, get a warrant, and then you look through the stuff. That's the way to go about it. When you have no evidence of guilt on somebody for anything at all, to just step up and say, well, I want to see their stuff anyway. Well, no, that's what a right to privacy is. It's the idea that if there's no reason to look through your stuff, the government can't look through your stuff. So if you're concerned about terrorists talking through encrypted messaging, great. Which terrorists are you concerned about? Do you have their names? Do you have the groups they're a part of? Okay, so take those names, take the groups they're a part of, present the evidence to a judge, let the judge say, okay, this person you have a right to look through their stuff, here's a warrant, this person you don't, sorry, you can't look through that one, this one you do, and then buy some fucking translators. There's nobody who works for the government that these massive civilized first world governments that speaks the languages of people who are talking via encrypted messaging. Look, I don't know what the reasoning is behind it, if they really genuinely care about protecting people and that's why they want to do this. But regardless if their motives are pure or not, we know that eventually the way it is in practice is not pure. Take a look at the U.S. with the Edward Snowden leaks. We learned that Very openly, you had people in the NSA spying on their ex-boyfriends and girlfriends, figuring out porn habits of, quote, radicalizers to discredit them. So take, for example, Elliot Spitzer. This is a guy who, oh, would you look at that? It just turns out the information was leaked that he went to hookers. How did that information get leaked? You know what they said? Their argument was, oh, we were doing an investigation of somebody else, and we looked through their credit card number at this place, and then we saw that his credit card number was there too. Oh, really? That's interesting. You memorized Elliot Spitzer's credit card number? You're able to notice his credit card number? No, you had to look for it in order to get it. See, this is a guy who threatened the establishment and threatened Wall Street and threatened power too much. So, hey, look at that. He went to hookers. Hey, look at that. This person's into some weird porn. Sorry, now they're discredited and you can't follow their movement, which is trying to uplift the middle class or whatever the thing may be. We know there were thousands of violations at the NSA of privacy. If they looked up a name of somebody who they thought was a terrorist, and what would happen is all the names of somebody that has that name would pop up. So if it's like John Anderson, there's like 8,000 John Andersons that pop up. If it's Muhammad Abdullah, there's 1,000 Muhammad Abdullahs that pop up. They just search through all of them. Again, this was all admitted. If you read the fucking news, if you looked at the leaks, if you read the articles that came out, I mean, this is what I do for a living, so I get it if other people don't. But who the fuck are you fooling? This idea that, oh, just give away your privacy rights and everything will work out for the better. But we know what ends up happening. You end up having dirt on your entire population. Nobody has any privacy anymore. Things that were supposed to be in confidence are then leaked. You know, there's 1,000,001 ways that this can go wrong. And it turns out how many terrorist attacks were actually stopped by having the key to everybody's personal data? Donut. Zero. So, essentially, it's not going to help. It reminds me of the old quote that people who sacrifice liberty for security deserve neither and will get neither. So I know it's a hard time, especially after an attack, for people to stand up and say, no, I'm going to protect the rights of the innocent people. I'm going to stand up and say, no, you can't just assume all of us are guilty. It's hard after an attack because everybody does feel vulnerable. Everybody's like, fuck, I didn't know this could happen here. This is crazy. What the fuck just happened? Okay, just do anything to keep us safe. That's the natural reaction from humans. And to a certain extent, it's rational. But there's a reason why these things are called rights. If something's a right, it's no longer in the realm of debate. There's no longer two sides to it. That was fucking settled back in the Magna Carta days in 1215. That's the point. Certain things in civilized societies are off the table. They're non-negotiable. And it is what it is. One of those things is freedom of speech. The other thing is a right to privacy. So isn't it ironic that when there was an all-out attack from these Muslim fundamentalists and terrorists on freedom of speech, what does the government do? They step up and say, we'll aid in their attack because now we're going to try to take away your privacy rights. Or no, or we should stand up for both of those rights. Freedom of speech is absolute and right to privacy is absolute.